In this video series, we're going to go through every single piece of JLPT grammar for the N3 level. These videos will be released on a regular basis and then eventually compiled into an enormous video game textbook so that you can learn every single piece of Japanese grammar for the JLPT N3. Each piece of grammar will feature multiple different games in order to give you the greatest understanding of how the piece of grammar is used, so that you can use this video to both learn new Japanese as well as review Japanese that you've already previously studied. So without further ado, let's get into it.
てめえが飯食ってる時、眠りこけてる時もこのバカでかいポンプが魔法をガンガン吸い上げるわけだ。
The first piece of N3 grammar we'll be looking at is AGERU, or AGARU, to mean to finish a certain action. Like seen here in Final Fantasy VII Remake, where Barrett says that this ridiculously huge pump will suck up all of the mako. Now, you may have learned from the previous JLPT levels that ageru and agaru are the transitive and intransitive verbs to raise something or put something up. So you could translate this sentence naturally as kind of to suck up the mako o suiageru. However, what this grammar is actually doing is a little bit more complicated than that. Here in this grammar point, ageru or agaru after a must form verb is actually meaning doing an action completely, exhaustively, to a limit, and it's often used when the verb is done with effort. Like seen here in this chart from imabi.com, we can see that agaru is used after the must stem of intransitive verbs to show that the action has ended or it has been completed. And ageru is used with transitive verbs to show that you have done that action exhaustively or to a certain limit, completely doing that action. One thing to note is that this grammar point cannot be used with just any verb. Like for example, tabe ageru is incorrect as it sounds very unnatural and there's no real effort being required to complete this action, and so you would use a different grammar point if you wanted to say to finish eating. So because this grammar point is used in a set number of phrases, it is definitely best to learn this piece of grammar through context rather than just try to attach it to any verb, as the list of verbs that it can be used with is rather limited. So if we visualize a verb in the must stem followed by ageru or agaru for up, this can mean to finish doing that action, often translated as doing it up, like seen here with suck up, to completely suck, suiageru. So let's take a look at some further examples in order to add more contextual understanding of how this grammar is used.
俺の必殺パンチを食らって立ち上がったやつはいねえ。
貴様の本当の狙いは何だ？俺たちのような戦士が生かされる時を再び築き上げること。
Kusuri uo o tsuriageta. So we can see in all of these examples, suck up, stand up, build up, and even fish up. All of these show that the action is done to completion, or in other words, to finish doing that action. In each of these cases, the action has been done with some effort to the state of completion. To completely suck up, suiageru, if you were to drink a milkshake with a straw and just take a sip, that would just be su. But if you were to try and suck it up all in one go like a that would be suiageru. To completely stand as well, to stand would simply be tatsu, but to stand up and the action of the standing has now been completed, that is tachiagaru. To finish building also has this feeling of putting in effort so that the action is completed. Rather than just to build or construct kizuku, we have kizuki ageru. This is to build up, to exhaustively do the action of building. And lastly, even with finishing fishing, again showing more than just the verb for fishing, tsuru, but to struggle with effort and finish doing that action, tsuriageru. So you can see that it required some effort in order to do the action, and now it's come to completion. As this grammar point is best learned with examples rather than to try and just attach it to any verb that you'd like, here are a few common uses of ageru or agaru to mean to complete an action. So just keep in mind that with this ageru or agaru, it's used to show that an action has been completed, often to its limit, and very often in English it'll have this feeling of doing something up. Whether finishing up, writing up, reading up, or making up, we can see this feeling of doing something up is also connected to doing something to completion.
あの子は力を得たあまり、逆に力に取りつかれてしまいました。
This next piece of grammar, AMARI, is used a little bit differently to the N4 AMARINI grammar point for not very much. Now we have just AMARI by itself, which is used to mean so much dun 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 that dun dun dun. Its main function is to connect a noun or verb that describes an emotion, feeling, or state, and it indicates the degree of that emotion, feeling, or state is so extremely severe that the following part of the sentence is caused due to that severity. It follows verbs as amari and nouns with no amari to say that the noun or verb is so bad that the following thing happens. Now, just be aware that you can only use this form following nouns or verbs, and it is a slightly stiff formal type of language. So, like here seen in Final Fantasy X, this mother is telling the story of how her child obtained so much power that he conversely became obsessed and taken over by it. So here we can see the first part. Chikara o eru, or eta, to obtain power, amari, to do so much that, chikara ni toritsukarete shimaimashita. He became completely obsessed with it. So we can see this one action being to such a high degree that it causes an unfavorable result. So let's take a look at some further examples to see how this grammar pattern is used in different contexts.
しかし、貪欲に強さを求めるあまり、禁忌とされていた他流慈愛に手を染め、ついにはフェノイ冷めようとしたし、真剣をも殺してしまう。
マスター・エラクスは闇を恐れるあまり光にとらわれすぎた。
ベインを恐れるあまり、うちの軍部じゃ先制攻撃論が主流で、将軍連中が勝手に戦争を始めないように、兵を利用して裏工作を仕掛けます。
So we can see in all of these examples, obtain so much power that you become obsessed, to seek strength so much that you even ended up killing your own master, to be so afraid of darkness that he became imprisoned by the light, and even the fear of a person being so much that a certain unfavorable action had to be taken. A final note is that the use of kanji is occasionally seen, like here in this example from Tekken 5, so just be aware that while it usually appears in hiragana, you may sometimes see it like here, written in kanji. So try to keep in mind that this use of amari is used to connect two clauses together in a sentence, with the first part often being what is too much, and the second part being a bad result due to that situation of being too much.
どうやら未だ強運には見放されてはいないようだが、しかしこの道は人の身で行くにはあまりにも過酷な夜の道。
Next, we have another use of amari here in AMARINIMO, with the mo often being optional for the use in placing further emphasis. This is meaning-wise the same as the previous grammar point, with something being too much. However, this is usually put at the beginning of a sentence to express doing so much of something, without needing to connect to any other clauses. It simply states that something is too much. Unlike the previous use of amari, this one can be used with adjectives and adverbs, as well as with nouns and verbs. To use with verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, you simply use amari ni in front, followed by the verb, adjective, or adverb, to express doing or being something or some way too much. And then with nouns with amari no. So here in the first example from Berserk, we can see AMARINIMO kakoku na yoru no michi, a road being far too harsh a road at night. So AMARINIMO coming before the rest of the sentence that's being modified, a hard night's road turning into too harsh of a night road. Let's have a look at some further examples to get a good feel for this grammar point.
なぜなら世界にうごめく魔物たちに比べ人はあまりにも弱い。
帝国軍の目的、我が知るはずなかろう。人間の考えはあまりに小すぎて想像もつかぬわ。
自分の右腕を代償にアルフォンスの魂を錬成し鎧に定着させることに成功するが、その代償はあまりにも高すぎた。
So we can see that AMARINIMO is used to say that something is too much, whether being too harsh of a road, being too weak, being too petty or trifling, and even finally with the sacrificial cost of something being too high. Just remember that the use of AMARINIMO is used at the beginning of a clause to say that clause is too much of something, and that the more is optional if you want to add further emphasis to the sentence.
遠い思い出のようなちぎれた夢、ちぎれた夢のような遠い思い出、つなぎ合わせたいんだ、一緒に。
This next piece of grammar is quite simple in its concept and is found in a wide variety of words and contexts. All. When used after the mus stem of a verb, all is used to express doing an action together with someone else. It can appear both with kanji or simply just written in hiragana, and it is a reasonably common piece of language. So, looking at our first example here from the opening of Kingdom Hearts 2, we can see the first use of ao in the word tsunagi awaseru. Tsunagu means to connect, and then if you combine it with ao, it becomes to connect together. So, tsunagi awasetai means I want to connect together. So very simply, if you want to show that you're doing an action together, you follow the verb in its mus stem followed by ao. Or like here in awaseru, another form of ao. So let's take a look at some further examples to get a really good feel for the grammar point.
自分自身と向き合える強い心が力へと変わる。
止めようとしたが、抵抗して揉み合いになり、妻は倒れた。
ジャック、いい？私は最後まであなたに付き合う。
So as we just saw, all of these uses of ao is used to show doing an action together. From connecting together, facing together, to have a struggle with one another, and even to accompany together. Just remember that when you see this use of ao following the mus stem form, it shows that that verb is being done together. And that's it for the first 4 grammar points of the JLPT N3. I'd like to keep this video a little bit short so I won't ramble on for too long, but just letting you guys know that this is the new series that I'm going to be doing for the grammar videos, and this is where we go through every single piece of grammar in the JLPT N3. However, what I'll be doing is I'll be releasing them 3 to 4 grammar points at a time, and I'll be trying to aim at doing this quite regularly, possibly every week, a new video. I've already collected over 280 different examples at this stage from different video games for the JLPT N3, and I still need to collect somewhere between 600 and 700 examples in order to be finished with the JLPT. So I'm about a third of the way done collecting examples from video games, so we definitely have a lot coming up very, very, very soon, so I hope you all look forward to that. And as always, thank you very much for enjoying learning Japanese with Gengo. So if you like this kind of video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a comment letting me know how you guys enjoyed the video, and if you really love this kind of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon and joining the community in the Game Gengo Discord. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.